Face. Part 1. The Beginning. It was a rainy evening when Claire moved into her new apartment on the outskirts of town. She had just gotten a new job at a publishing house and wanted a quiet place to live, far from the noise of the city. The apartment was old, with creaking wooden floors, tall windows covered by heavy curtains, and an unsettling silence that filled the rooms. The landlord, a pale man in his late 50s, handed her the keys and muttered, "Stay away from the mirrors at night." Claire laughed nervously, thinking it was just a strange joke. "What do you mean?" she asked. The landlord's eyes shifted uncomfortably. "Just don't look too long, especially after midnight." Then he quickly left, not waiting for more questions. That night, after unpacking her things, Claire noticed a large mirror fixed to the wall in the hallway. Its frame was black wood, carved with strange patterns that looked almost like faces twisted in pain. She shivered, but brushed it off. She went to bed, ignoring the faint sound of dripping water somewhere in the apartment. Part 2. The First Encounter. At exactly midnight, Claire woke up. She didn't know why. The apartment was quiet, except for the rain tapping against the windows. She got up to get a glass of water and walked through the hallway. The mirror caught her attention. For a moment, she thought she saw someone standing in it. A tall woman, dressed in black, her hair covering her face. Claire froze. When she turned to look at the hallway behind her, it was empty. But in the reflection, the woman was still there. Her hands trembled. She whispered, "Who are you?" The figure slowly raised its head. Claire's breath caught in her throat. The woman had no face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin stretched across her head like wax. The glass in her hand dropped and shattered on the floor. She squeezed her eyes shut, her heart pounding, and when she dared to look again, the reflection was normal, just her own terrified face staring back at her. Claire ran back to her room and locked the door, but she could still feel someone watching her in the dark. Part 3. Whispers in the Night. Over the next few days, things grew worse. Every night at midnight, Claire heard whispers. At first, they were faint, like wind rustling through leaves. Then they became clearer, voices calling her name, dragging each syllable slowly. Claire! Sometimes she saw shadows moving across the walls, even when no lights were on. One evening, while brushing her teeth, she saw movement in the bathroom mirror. The faceless woman stood behind her, closer than ever. Claire spun around, but again there was nothing. The mirror fogged up, and when Claire wiped it with her hand, words appeared in the condensation. "You cannot hide." Claire screamed and ran out of the bathroom. Part 4. The history of the woman terrified and desperate for answers, Claire asked her neighbor, Mrs. Porter, an elderly woman who had lived in the building for decades. "Do you know anything about the mirror in my hallway?" Claire asked. Mrs. Porter's face paled. "Oh dear, you shouldn't have moved into that apartment. That mirror belonged to Evelyn Moore." "Who was she?" Claire asked. Mrs. Porter lowered her voice. "She was a woman who lived here many years ago. Beautiful, but obsessed with her reflection. She spent hours staring into mirrors, more than she spent living her life. One night, she destroyed her own face with a shard of glass. People said she wanted to become faceless so she could be free from vanity. But after her death, strange things started happening. Anyone who kept her mirror saw her, and sometimes she took their faces too." Claire's skin crawled. "Took their faces?" Mrs. Porter nodded. "Yes. People who saw her for too long were found dead. Their skin was smooth where their faces should have been." Claire felt cold sweat run down her neck. She wanted to throw the mirror away, but something inside told her it wasn't that simple. Part 5. The Haunting Grows. That night, Claire covered the mirror with a blanket, but at midnight she heard scratching. Long, slow scratching, like nails dragging across glass. The blanket slipped off by itself. The mirror was uncovered. Claire stared in horror as the faceless woman stepped out of the mirror. Her body was tall and twisted, her long black dress brushing the floor. Her head tilted unnaturally, as though listening to Claire's heartbeat. Claire tried to scream, but no sound came out. The woman's smooth, featureless face leaned close to hers. Then suddenly, a mouth tore open across the blank skin, wide and sharp with blackened teeth. It whispered in a voice that sounded like 100 voices together. "I want your face." Claire bolted into her room, slamming the door shut. She pressed her back against it, shaking uncontrollably. but she could hear the woman breathing on the other side, slow and deep. She didn't sleep that night. Part 6. The descent days turned into weeks. Claire grew pale, her eyes hollow from lack of sleep. At work, she made mistakes, forgot words, and jumped at every shadow. Her coworkers asked if she was okay. She lied, saying she was just tired. But every night, the woman came closer. Claire no longer needed a mirror to see her. She saw the faceless woman standing in corners, at the end of hallways, even reflected in windows on the street. The worst part, Claire noticed her own reflection changing. When she looked in the mirror, her face seemed to fade, her features blurring. One morning, she woke up screaming. Her reflection had no mouth. Part 7. The Final Night. Claire decided she couldn't take it anymore. She had to destroy the mirror. At midnight, with a hammer in her hand, she stood before it. The faceless woman was already waiting inside, her head tilted, her empty skin face pressed against the glass. Claire raised the hammer. "I won't let you take me," she cried. She smashed the mirror with all her strength. The glass shattered into countless pieces, scattering across the floor. But instead of silence, the apartment filled with laughter. Horrible, distorted laughter. From every shard of broken glass, the faceless woman stepped out. One became two, then four, then dozens. The room swarmed with them, all whispering, "We want your face." Claire dropped the hammer and screamed. The figures closed in. Cold hands grabbed her, pulling her down. The last thing she felt was her skin burning as if it were being peeled away. Part 8. The Aftermath. The next morning, the landlord found the apartment door wide open. The rooms were empty, except for broken shards of mirror on the floor. But when he looked closely at one piece of glass, he froze. Claire's face was trapped inside the shard, her eyes wide with terror, her mouth open in a silent scream. The landlord sighed, picked up the shard, and whispered, "Another one claimed." Then he carefully placed it back into the frame of the mirror, where Claire's face stared forever, and the woman with no face waited for her next victim. If you liked this story, please subscribe to the channel and like the video.